My son asked to borrow my car for 1 hour on a Thursday evening. I said yes. I gave him the keys off the hook by the back door, the same hook they had been on for 22 years, and I told him to drive safe, and I went to bed early, because I had told him I was tired, which I was, 69 years old, and tired in the particular way you are tired when you have been managing a grief for 2 years that nobody has asked about in the last 18 months of it. I was in bed by 9:30. The house was quiet. The fan was running the way it always runs, the white noise of a man who has slept alone since his wife died and needs something between himself and the silence. At 2 in the morning I woke up, not the alarm, not a sound from inside the house, something outside my bedroom window, close enough to be on the side path that runs between my house and the neighbor's fence. A voice, low and specific, the voice of a man who believes the person inside the window is asleep. I lay still. The fan was running. I turned my head toward the window without moving anything else. It was my son's voice. He said, "The old man signed it. The account is already open." I did not move. I lay in the dark with my hands flat on the mattress, and I listened to my son walk away down the side path, and I heard the car start in the street, my car, and I heard him pull away, and I lay there for another full minute before I got up. I walked to my desk in the study, the one in the corner with the lamp I keep on low, because I like a lit room at night, the desk where I keep the folder with the papers that matter. I opened the center drawer. I opened the left drawer. I opened the file drawer on the right side, the deep one, where the folder lived behind the hanging files. The folder was gone. In its place was a single page, folded once, my name written on the outside in handwriting that was not mine. I picked it up. I unfolded it. I read what was on it. I stood at my desk at 2 in the morning in my own house, and I read what my son had left in the place where my folder used to be, and I understood, in the space of about 45 seconds, the full shape of what had been built around me, while I was busy being tired, and grieving, and going to bed early. Then I walked to the kitchen. I put the kettle on. I sat down at the table, and I started making a list. Welcome to Dad's Story. If you are new here, stay through this one, because this one matters. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and let's get into it. My name is Howard Gale. I am 69 years old, and I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, on a street called Birchwood Lane, in a brick ranch house that my wife Marguerite and I bought in 1989 for $112,000, which felt at the time like the kind of number you say quietly, in case someone hears you and realizes you should not have been trusted with it. We paid it off in 2014. Marguerite bought a bottle of champagne that neither of us finished, because we were never much for champagne. And we sat on the back porch and looked at the yard she had spent 25 years turning into something, and we held hands, like people who know what they have built, and are not in any hurry to say it out loud. She died in 2022. Heart failure, rapid and final. The kind that does not give you a conversation at the end, just a morning that is different from every morning that came before it. We had been married 41 years. I am not going to try to describe what that loss is. I am going to tell you that the azalea bush she planted in 1997 along the back fence bloomed for the first time without her that following April, and I stood at the kitchen window and looked at it for a long time, and that is as close as I can get to what 41 years of losing feels like when it arrives all at once. I worked for 38 years as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing firm outside Knoxville. I designed components for industrial systems, the kind of precise and unglamorous work that nobody notices until something breaks, and I was good at it, which I say without vanity because good at engineering is an objective category. Things either hold or they do not. Tolerances are either within spec or they are not. My components held. My tolerances were within spec. That is the record. I retired in 2019, 3 years before Marguerite died, which meant I had 3 years of retirement with her, before I had retirement alone, and the 3 years with her I do not regret for a single day, and the 2 years without her I am still finding my way through. My son Nathan is 45. He lives 20 minutes from me in a neighborhood in West Knoxville that has the specific quality of neighborhoods that peaked about 8 years ago and have been declining quietly since. The kind of decline that is invisible if you are inside it, and obvious if you are paying attention from outside. Nathan works in commercial lending, or he worked in commercial lending, or he works in some version of it. The story has changed enough times across the last several years that I have stopped attaching too much certainty to any particular version. His wife, Donna, is 42. She is pleasant in the surface-level way that some people are pleasant, warm enough that you feel the warmth and cannot quite locate what is underneath it. She calls me Howard, which is my name, but she says it the way certain people say names, precisely enough that it functions as a form of distance rather than familiarity. My daughter Claire is 42, same age as Donna, different mother because Claire is from my first marriage, a brief and early mistake I made at 24 that produced a child I am glad exists, and a marriage I am glad ended. Claire lives in Nashville. She calls on Wednesdays. She has never asked me for money. She came to Marguerite's funeral and stayed for 4 days and washed every dish in my kitchen and repotted 2 of Marguerite's houseplants that were struggling, because Claire is the kind of person who expresses love by identifying what needs doing and doing it quietly and without being asked. I want you to hold Claire in the back of your mind as I tell you this story. She matters. She matters more than anything in this story, actually, but that part comes later. Nathan had been attentive since Marguerite died. I want to give him that honestly, because accuracy requires it. In the months after the funeral, he had called often and visited often and brought food sometimes, the way adult children do in the aftermath of loss. He had helped me manage some paperwork that felt overwhelming, which I had appreciated, and in appreciating it, I had given him access to things I would not have given him access to in a less raw state of mind. Not legal authority, not signing authority, access, the kind that comes from a grieving man sitting at his kitchen table saying, "Son, I don't know where Marguerite kept the insurance policies. Could you help me look?" He had helped me look, and in helping me look, he had learned the shape of what I had, not from a single conversation but from many small ones, accumulated across months of being helpful, the way a man can learn the layout of a house not by being given a tour, but by being allowed inside often enough to have found all the rooms himself. I did not see it while it was happening. I want to be honest about that. I was 67 years old and grieving and grateful for the presence of a son who showed up, and the showing up was real enough that what it was covering did not become visible until a Thursday night when a tired man went to bed early and woke up at 2 in the morning to a voice on the side path. The account is already open. Let me tell you what the folder contained, and what it meant, and why those 5 words, heard through a window in the dark, were the most clarifying thing that had happened to me in 2 years. The folder was the one Marguerite had always called the important papers folder. She had maintained it with a specificity that I now understand as a gift she was giving me in advance of needing it. The way organized people build systems not for themselves, but for the people who will come after them, and will be grateful the system exists. Inside it lived the following: the deed to the house, my retirement account statements, the current will, last revised in 2018, which Marguerite and I had updated together after her mother died, the trust document Marguerite had established for her personal assets, the life insurance policy, and a smaller folder inside the larger one, a green one, which held the documentation for a joint investment account that Marguerite and I had built across 15 years of careful, patient, unglamorous saving, and which had, at its last statement, a balance of $422,000. The old man signed it. The account is already open. My son had taken the folder, and somewhere in what the folder contained, he had found something he believed constituted a signature on something that had opened an account in his name, or in both our names, or in some configuration that gave him access to something that was not his to access. I sat at my kitchen table at 2:15 in the morning, with the kettle and a legal pad, and I wrote down everything I knew, in order, in the precise and methodical way that 38 years of engineering had made automatic. What I had, what was missing, what I had heard, what I did not yet know, the shape of the thing I was dealing with. By 3:30 I had a list. By 4 o'clock I knew who I was going to call in the morning. If you are still with me, drop a comment. Hit that like button, because what I found in the green folder when I went looking for it the next day was worse than I had understood from the side path, and what I did about it is the reason I am sitting here telling this story instead of a different one. I did not sleep after 3:30. I lay in bed until 5, and then I got up and made coffee properly, and sat at the kitchen table with my list, and I waited for a reasonable hour. At 8 o'clock I called a woman named Diane Kowalski, whose office was on Gay Street in downtown Knoxville, and who had been recommended to me by a colleague from the firm who had used her 3 years earlier in a situation involving a business partner who had done something he should not have done. My colleague had described Diane Kowalski as someone who does not miss things, which in the context of what I was sitting with was exactly the quality I needed. She answered her own phone. I told her what I had heard through the window. I told her about the folder. I told her about the note I had found in its place, which I had not yet told you about because I wanted you to hear it the way I heard it, in order, without skipping ahead to the part that made my blood run cold. The note was this. Folded once, my name on the outside. Inside, in handwriting I recognized as Nathan's, 3 lines. Dad, by the time you read this, we have already talked to the bank. The power of attorney is in place. This is easier for everyone. We will explain when we see you. The power of attorney is in place. I had not signed a power of attorney. I had not been presented with one. I had not discussed one. I had not authorized anyone to act on my behalf in any financial or legal capacity. The power of attorney is in place. Diane Kowalski was quiet for a moment after I read her the 3 lines. Then she said, in the voice of a woman who has heard enough in her career to know immediately when something is serious, Mr. Gale, do not go to the bank today. Do not contact Nathan today. Do not sign anything today, regardless of who presents it to you or what reason they give. Can you be in my office at 10 o'clock? I was there at 9:40. She was already at her desk. She had a yellow legal pad and a pen, and she looked at me with the specific focused attention of a woman who understood that time mattered in the way it mattered when someone had gotten to a bank before you had. Tell me everything, she said, from the beginning, not from last night, from the beginning. I told her from the beginning. I told her about Marguerite and the folder, and the months after the funeral, and Nathan's helpfulness, and what helpfulness had allowed him to learn. I told her about the Thursday evening, the keys off the hook, the early bedtime, the 2 o'clock window. I told her about the 5 words. The account is already open. Diane wrote steadily while I talked. When I finished, she put her pen down and looked at her notes for a moment. The power of attorney, she said. In Tennessee, a valid power of attorney requires a wet signature from the principal in front of a notary. It cannot be created digitally without specific statutory compliance, and even then, there are verification requirements. If Nathan presented a power of attorney to a bank, and that power of attorney bears your signature, then either he forged it, or someone helped him forge it, or he obtained a signature from you under circumstances you were not aware of. She paused. Is there any document you signed in the last year that you did not read completely? I thought about it. There was one. 8 months ago, Nathan had brought me some paperwork he said was related to a beneficiary update on one of Marguerite's accounts. He had said the bank required it as part of settling the estate, which was still technically ongoing at the time. He had set 3 pages on my kitchen table and pointed to the signature lines, and I had signed where he pointed, because he was my son, and because the estate paperwork had been extensive, and because I had been tired in the specific bone-deep way that 8 months of grief produces. I had not read those pages. I told Diane this. She wrote something down and underlined it twice. I need those pages, she said. Do you have copies? I did not have copies. Nathan had taken the originals. Standard procedure, he had said. The bank needs the originals. All right, Diane said. Here is what we do. I file an emergency motion this morning to freeze any account transfers pending investigation of a potentially forged or fraudulently obtained power of attorney. That motion goes to a judge before noon. Simultaneously, I contact the bank directly and notify them that the power of attorney being held in my client's name is under legal dispute and that any transactions executed under its authority are subject to reversal. And I need you to call me the moment Nathan contacts you, which he will, because by the time the bank receives my letter, he will know something has moved. She looked at me steadily. Are you prepared for this to become serious? She said. I thought about the 5 words through the window. The account is already open. It already is serious, I said. I am just the last person in the room to know it. Diane nodded once. Then let's make sure you are the first person in the room when it ends. She had the motion filed by 11:15. I know because she texted me the confirmation number from the courthouse while I was sitting in my car in the parking garage on Market Street, too unsettled to drive and not ready to go home to the house where the folder was missing from the drawer. Nathan called at 12:40. I let it ring once, then I picked up because Diane had told me to pick up and to say as little as possible while letting him say as much as he needed to. Hey, Dad, he said, and his voice had the careful warmth of a man who has been rehearsing his tone. Nathan, I said, just checking in. How are you feeling this morning? Fine, I said. A brief pause. He had expected more from the word fine. He had expected, I think, a man who did not yet know that the folder was gone, or a man who had found the note and was confused and needed explaining to. What he got instead was the specific quiet of a man who knew exactly what had happened and had spent the morning sitting in a lawyer's office on Gay Street. Listen, Nathan said. I wanted to talk to you about something. Donna and I have been thinking about your finances, just from a planning perspective, and there is something I want to come over and walk you through. Would this afternoon work? Not today, I said. Another pause. Longer. Tomorrow, maybe? He said. I'll let you know, I said. A silence that contained more information than anything he had said. Okay, he said. Talk soon. I hung up and called Diane and told her what he had said. She said good, and told me not to schedule any visit until she called me back with an update from the bank. The bank called Diane at 2:15. The power of attorney had been presented 3 days earlier, not the night Nathan borrowed the car, but 3 days before, which meant the car was not how he had gotten the folder. The car had been a different purpose entirely, and the folder had been taken on a previous visit, a visit I needed to think about. The previous Saturday. Nathan had come over for what he described as a casual drop-in, brought lunch, stayed 2 hours. I had gone to the backyard at some point to show him something Marguerite had planted that was coming back unexpectedly, a hydrangea she had put in the year before she died, that I had not expected to survive the winter. We had been outside for about 25 minutes. He had been inside the house alone for 25 minutes. The power of attorney had my signature on it. The bank officer had told Diane it appeared to be a standard Tennessee statutory form. My name and signature were on the principal line. Nathan's name was on the agent line. A notary stamp from a notary service in West Knoxville, dated 11 days ago. 11 days ago I had not been to West Knoxville. 11 days ago I had not signed a power of attorney. 11 days ago I had been in my backyard on a Saturday afternoon showing my son a hydrangea that had come back from the dead. The signature was a forgery. Diane said it as a statement of fact, not a conclusion still being reached. We can have it analyzed, she said, but the timeline makes the analysis academic. You have never been to that notary. The stamp exists on a document you did not sign. That is forgery, Mr. Gale, and in Tennessee that is a felony. I sat in my car in the parking garage, and I breathed for a moment. Then I said, "What did he open?" Diane told me. The account Nathan had referenced on the side path, the one that was already open, was a new joint investment account at a different bank from the one that held my existing accounts. He had presented the power of attorney to open it jointly in my name and his name, with himself as the managing partner. He had not yet transferred anything into it. The power of attorney gave him the legal authority to transfer funds from my existing accounts to the new joint one, and from there to wherever he chose to move them. He had built the mechanism. He had not yet pulled the lever. The motion Diane had filed that morning had arrived at the bank before he pulled it. By 12 hours. I sat with that for a long time. 12 hours. If I had not woken up. If I had not gone to the desk. If I had lain in bed until morning and called Nathan and said, "Son, there seems to be a note in my drawer," and let him come over and explain it in the careful, warm voice he had been using all morning. 12 hours. Hit that like button. We are getting to the part where the lever he built gets turned on something he did not design it for. Diane filed the criminal complaint with the Knox County Sheriff's Office on a Friday morning, 4 days after the emergency motion. She had by then the following in a folder on her desk: the forensic handwriting analysis of the power of attorney signature, which a certified document examiner had compared against verified exemplars of my handwriting from my retirement paperwork, and found to be inconsistent in 14 specific measurable points. The timeline establishing that the notary stamp dated 11 days prior could not have been applied in my presence, since I had credit card and phone records placing me at home and in my immediate neighborhood for the entirety of that day. The bank records showing the joint account opened in my name without my presence or direct authorization, and the recording, which I had not yet told you about because some things belong in the order they actually occurred. The recording. On the Friday morning after the Thursday night, after I had made my list and called Diane and sat in the parking garage and heard about the account that was already open, I had done one more thing before I went home. I had gone to the same electronics store on Cumberland Avenue where I bought a replacement phone charger 2 years ago, and I had purchased a small digital voice recorder, the same kind another father in a different story in a different city had bought for $42 and put in his shirt pocket, because some ideas are good ideas regardless of whose story they appear in first. I had put it in my shirt pocket, and I had gone home and I had waited. Nathan came on Sunday. I had not invited him, but I had not told him not to come, and he arrived at 11 with a box of donuts from the place on Kingston Pike that he knew I liked, which is the specific kind of thoughtfulness that is harder to hold against someone than a hostile approach would be, and which I suspect was calculated for exactly that reason. We sat at the kitchen table. He poured coffee with the ease of a man comfortable in a kitchen that is not his, which I noticed and said nothing about. He talked for a while about ordinary things, the way you talk about ordinary things when you are managing towards something and need the ordinary things to establish the temperature of the room first. Then he said, "Dad, I wanted to explain about the account." "All right," I said. "I know it probably seemed unusual, finding the note, but the truth is, we have been worried about you, Donna and I, just from a financial security standpoint. The market has been volatile, and your accounts are not structured in a way that protects you from a significant downturn. And I thought if we set something up jointly, it would give us both visibility into what was happening and give you a layer of protection." He said protection. He was describing his access to my money as my protection. "I see," I said. "The power of attorney is really just a formality," he said. "Standard estate planning stuff. Dad, I just want to make sure you are taken care of." "The power of attorney," I said. "The one with my signature on it." He looked at me. Something shifted in his face. Not much, just a degree or two in the direction of uncertainty. "Right," he said. "You signed that a while back. Remember? When we were going through the estate paperwork after Mom." "I remember the estate paperwork," I said. "I do not remember a power of attorney." "It was in the stack," Nathan said, and his voice had not changed its surface, but something underneath it had. "You might not have registered every page individually. There was a lot of paper." "There was," I said. "I have been thinking about that. I have also been thinking about the Saturday you came over last week, and we went outside to look at the hydrangea, and you were inside for about 25 minutes. Nathan was quiet. "And I have been thinking about a notary in West Knoxville," I said, "whose stamp is on a document dated a day I was home all day, which my phone records and credit card records can confirm. The kitchen was very quiet. Nathan looked at his coffee. He looked at the table. He looked at me. "Dad," he started. "I also want you to know," I said, "that I filed an emergency motion on Friday morning to freeze any transfers on the new joint account, and that a criminal complaint for document forgery was filed with the sheriff's office yesterday, and that Diane Kowalski on Gay Street has a folder on her desk with a forensic handwriting analysis that identifies 14 specific points of inconsistency between the signature on the power of attorney and my actual handwriting." Nathan did not say anything. "I want you to understand something," I said. "I am not telling you this to punish you. I am telling you this so that you understand the full shape of where things stand before you decide what to say next. Because what you say next, in this kitchen, at this table, is going to matter in the ways that words at a kitchen table matter. Not legally. Diane handles the legal part. But between a father and a son, what is said and what is not said in the next few minutes is going to be something we both carry for a long time." Nathan sat for a long time. The donut box was open between us. The coffee was getting cold. Outside, through the kitchen window, you could see the backyard and the hydrangea along the back fence. Marguerite's hydrangea, the one that had come back from the dead, and that Nathan had stood beside 2 weeks ago, while the folder was in the house unattended. He put his face in his hands. "Not a performance. I have taught myself to watch for the difference, and this was not a performance. This was a man arriving at the true bottom of something and finding that the bottom was harder than he had expected. He stayed like that for a while. I did not say anything. I let the silence be what it needed to be. When he finally looked up, his face had done something I had not seen it do in years. Not since he was a child. Not since the particular moments that children have before they learn to keep those moments behind something stronger. "I am in so much trouble, Dad," he said. "I know," I said. "The lending business," he said. "It has been failing for 2 years. We owe more than we have. I have been moving things around, trying to keep it from collapsing. I thought if I could get to your accounts I could bridge it for long enough to get things stabilized and then pay it back before you ever knew. I thought it was temporary." "It is not temporary," I said. "No," he said. "I know that now." "Nathan," my voice was steady. "I want to tell you it was steady, because it was. Not because I was not feeling anything, but because I had spent 2 weeks being a man who felt things carefully, rather than immediately, and that practice was still in place. You forged my signature on a legal document. You took the folder from my house. You opened a financial account in my name, without my knowledge or consent. Those are not things that can be walked back by bridging a gap. Those are the kind of things that change what comes next permanently." He nodded. His hands were flat on the table. "I know," he said. "Diane handles what comes next legally," I said. "That is not my decision anymore. I made it my decision by filing the complaint, and I am going to let it be what it is. What I have a say in is this kitchen right now, and what I want to say in this kitchen is that I love you in the way that does not stop, which is the same way your mother loved you, and that love is going to be here on the other side of whatever comes next. But I am not going to tell you it is all right, because it is not all right, and your mother and I raised you to understand the difference between the two." He was crying by then. Real tears, the kind that do not perform, and I sat across the table from my 45-year-old son, and I let him cry, because some things need to be felt completely before they can be learned from. When he finally wiped his face with the back of his hand, he looked at me with the specific, exhausted openness of a man who has put down something very heavy. "What do I do?" he said. "You call your own lawyer," I said, "today, before anything else, and you are honest with them. Whatever cooperation Diane's office needs from you in the investigation, you provide it, and you start being honest with Donna about how bad it actually is, not the managed version, the real version, because she deserves the real version, and so do you." He nodded. "The account," I said, "the joint one. It gets closed. Today if we can manage it." "Yes," he said. "And the folder," I said. "Everything that was in it comes back to me. Original condition. Yes, he said. We sat for a while longer. Neither of us ate a donut. The coffee was entirely cold. Outside, the hydrangea was doing what hydrangeas do in November, which is mostly existing and waiting for spring, and I looked at it through the window and thought about Marguerite planting it the year before she died, the specific patient faith of a woman who plants something and does not know whether she will be there to see it bloom. She had not been there for the bloom, but she had planted it, and it had come back, and it was still out there being patient in the November cold. Some things survive what they should not have to survive. That is not comfort, exactly, but it is something close. Nathan left at 1 o'clock. He had his lawyer's number on a piece of paper in his pocket, a referral I had given him from Diane's list of attorneys she trusted to handle the other side of these things honestly, because even in this, even now, I was not interested in destroying my son. I was interested in the truth being documented and the record being accurate, and the damage being limited to what it actually was, rather than what panic or anger might make it into. He called his lawyer from the driveway. I watched from the kitchen window. He sat in his car for 20 minutes, with the phone at his ear, and then he drove away. I called Claire. Claire answered on the second ring. She always does. She said, "Dad, what is wrong?" before I had said anything beyond her name, because Claire has the same social sonar her mother had, the ability to read a room through a phone line. I told her everything, all of it, from the beginning. She was quiet through most of it, the way she is quiet when she is listening completely, rather than preparing to respond. When I finished, she said, "Are you all right?" "I am," I said, "or I will be." "I am driving up tonight," she said. "You don't have to." "I am driving up tonight," she said, with the specific gentle firmness that her mother used to use, and which I have never been able to argue with in either of the women who have employed it against me. She was at my door at 7:30 with a bag over her shoulder, and a container of soup from a place in Nashville she knew I liked, and she came in and set the soup on the stove, and walked into the kitchen, and looked at me the way her mother used to look at me, when she wanted to see for herself that something was true. "You look tired," she said. "I am tired," I said. "Okay," she said. "Come sit down." We sat at the kitchen table and ate soup from Marguerite's bowls, and talked until 10 o'clock. Not about Nathan, mostly, but about other things, about the hydrangea, and about a book Claire was reading, and about a former colleague of mine who had called out of the blue last month, and whom we both agreed I should call back. The ordinary things, the kind that remind you that there is a life on both sides of the thing that has just happened, a before and an after, and the after is still a life. At one point, Claire looked at the table and said, quietly, "Mom would have been so angry." "Yes," I said. "And then she would have asked what Nathan needed," Claire said. "Yes," I said, in that order. Claire smiled, small and real. "I got that from her too," she said. "The angry first part." "It is a good quality in the right amount," I said. We washed the bowls together in the kitchen sink, the way you wash dishes with someone you have washed dishes with for decades. Without discussion, one washing and one drying. And when we were done, Claire dried her hands on the dish towel and said, "I am going to make you a system. For the important papers, a real one, with copies in 2 places, and I am going to know where both places are, and you are going to know where both places are, and we are going to make sure that what happened to the folder cannot happen again." "All right," I said. "And I am going to call you on Wednesday and Friday," she said. "Not just Wednesday." I looked at my daughter, 42 years old, standing in her mother's kitchen with a dish towel in her hands, making plans with the specific practical love of a woman who shows up and finds what needs doing and does it. "You don't have to do all that," I said. "I know I don't," she said. "That is why it means something." I thought about that later, lying in bed with the fan running and the house quiet, this time with Claire in the guest room down the hall. I thought about the difference between love that costs something and love that costs nothing, and which one you can trust when the account is already open and the folder is missing from the drawer. Some things you learn from a 5-word sentence heard through a window at 2 in the morning. Some things you learn from a daughter who drives 3 hours with soup and stays until the dishes are washed and makes plans without being asked. Those are not the same lesson, but they come from the same source, which is paying attention to what is actually being built around you while you are busy going to bed early and trusting the people who show up. I paid attention. Eventually. I am paying attention now. The criminal investigation is ongoing. Diane tells me cooperation from Nathan's attorney has been consistent, which she says is the best available outcome from where things stand. I am not going to speculate about outcomes I do not control. What I will tell you is that the new folder is in 2 places, one in my desk and one in Claire's apartment in Nashville, and that both of us know where both are. The joint account was closed within 48 hours of the Sunday kitchen conversation. The power of attorney was revoked formally and filed with the county. A new will was drawn up, not in anger but in accuracy, reflecting what I actually want rather than what was written in 2018, before a Thursday night taught me what a 5-word sentence can reveal about the shape of the life around you. Marguerite's hydrangea is still along the back fence. I look at it every morning from the kitchen window. It does not know what happened in the house behind it. It is just doing what she planted it to do, coming back every year, blooming in spring, being exactly what it was designed to be. I am doing the same. 69 years old, retired engineer, widower, father of 2, man who woke at 2 in the morning and made a list and called a lawyer and ate soup with his daughter from his late wife's bowls. That is the accurate version. That is what the record shows. And the record, as 38 years of engineering will tell you, is the only thing that matters in the end. Things either hold or they do not. I hold. If this story stayed with you, drop a comment below. Tell me one word for what you felt when Diane said the motion arrived 12 hours before he pulled the lever. Hit that like button, subscribe if you are not already here, and I will see you in the next one. And if someone in your life has been learning the layout of your house by being allowed inside often enough to find all the rooms, trust what you are noticing. Make the list. Call the lawyer. And check what your son did with the 25 minutes while you were outside looking at the hydrangea. Dad's Story. Every week. Because the account should always be in your name. Dad's Story uploads every week. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one.